we surveyed the audience earlier today, and we've got people from North America, Europe, the Middle East. Most of the people are educators or educational leaders. We've got some parents, authors, librarian, historian, archivists, researchers, and just over half the delegates identify as being part of the LGBTIQA plus community. It's been phenomenal. And I think I'm going to have to watch it again because it's been really, really good. So welcome back, everyone. My name is Laila. My pronouns are she, her. I am of North African descent. I'm wearing a red dress. My eyes are brown and so is my hair. And did I say my pronouns? I'm getting tired now. Thank you, Faye. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited. This panel is called Meet the Authors, and I couldn't be happier to welcome all of you. So Dr. Chris, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I am thrilled to meet all of you. I am Dr. Chris Shane. I use she, her pronouns. Today, at least, my hair's fairly dark. My eyes are green, and I am rocking Layla's red dress look today. We didn't plan it, and I'm glad we're not
playing... we're both wearing red.
We are. I am glad we are not playing Who Wore It Best, because I bow down to the queen of our pride in education. I am absolutely beyond thrilled to be here because I have incredible guests with me. And I am excited for everyone to say hello. And then we will talk about each of the works that have brought us all together. And we'll have some roundtable sort of conversations and figure out where our commonalities are and where we're sort of each unique, even though we all come together for the same cause and goal. So let's start with Faye. Hi, Faye.
You have joined us from the States, haven't you, Chris?
Oh, I have joined from the States. I am in the States, and I feel very posh to call it the States. But someday, my big goal is getting all of us together live somewhere. Hopefully, it means I will get to travel because many of you are coming from places I have yet to go. When that day comes, I hope you will all email and tell me where I should eat and see things and do things and everything. And as we get there, Faye, where are you?
Hi, thanks, Chris. Yeah, Faye, I use she, her pronouns. I'm in England, usually down in the southeast in Kent, but actually I'm visiting family. So today I'm further north near Manchester. Yeah, and again, really pleased to be here. Joined as a sort of just a participant a couple of events ago, and then was able to join and speak a little bit in the last conference, which was fantastic, and really pleased to be here again. So yes, sorry to describe me. As I say, I'm sitting here in just a bedroom, a spare room in the north of England, and I have my green jumper on. Not very exciting. It's got a swan on the front, and I have sort of shoulder length ginger-ish hair, dyed blonde at the end, going a little bit grey on top, but I like to hide that as much as I can. Green eyes, and yeah, that's me, to give you a visual picture.
I love it. I love it, and I love that I'm going to work on this. Being from the States, I'm going to work on it now. I'm going to start referring to them as jumpers instead. I do have friends in Australia who call them capsicum instead of peppers. Oh. I'm learning. Okay. Americans are taught that the world revolves around us, so now I am learning that jumper is the better lingo. I will stick with that.
As opposed to what, Chris?
Sweater? I think.
Okay, I guess to me a sweater would be more of a tracksuit sweatshirt material, a different, okay. Yeah, whereas a jumper is more knitted fabric.
I don't know that there's a jumper word that we so much use in the US. Fliss, where are you and what do you call it? You are muted. Wait, you're muted. We can't hear.
Well, that was a rookie mistake, wasn't it? I'm here now. Yes, hi, I'm Fliss. It's lovely to meet you all. My pronouns are she, her, and I am in England as well. I am slap bang in the middle of England in Derbyshire, as furthest away from the sea as you can get, totally landlocked. I am a white female. I'm 38, and I have jaw-length blonde hair, and I'm wearing silver glasses or spectacles, and I have on a sort of mottled green and white jumper with a black polo neck underneath and a silver necklace.
I love it. And I also love that we are now going with 2 out of 3 of us with jumpers. So I am updating my language. And I think that leads us brilliantly sort of into some of our conversation that brought us together. The book that brought me here is my first book, The Educator's Guide to LGBT plus Inclusion. And it has rainbow books on the cover with rainbow tie-dye in the middle. I will attempt to, oh, it doesn't really want to. My background is blurry so that y'all can't see I'm sitting on my couch, and the Zoom does not want to let me zoom in on it. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But within that book, one of the key areas I get the most positive feedback on is the conversation in it about language and terminology, and looking at what do we call words and phrases and situations and feelings that we've never had before. And what does it look like when we come new into a situation or a topic area that we don't know? And our fearless leader is posting links, I think, as we're each speaking, into the chat box for those who are interested in seeing or even purchasing some of these books. I can tell you right now, there are 2 that are coming to my house soon, conveniently written by Faye and Fliss. And looking at the realities of what does our language tell us? And one of these ways we're already talking about it is even something as basic as what does the word sweater mean? What does the word jumper mean? Right? No one here is wrong. It's just words the other typically doesn't hear. And maybe it means when I do get to come to one of these in person someday, when we all get to come together, I need to learn that if I'm shopping, to ask for what I'm looking for using the language of where I am, and hearing that the same way that Fliss and Faye, when they come visit me, hint, hint, please come visit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We'll need to learn that here, when they're shopping, they will need to use the language in the US, in the States, to get what they need. And I need to learn when I go somewhere else to use that language. And it isn't about whether I'm right and somebody's wrong or somebody else is wrong and all of those sorts of details. It's making sure our language fits in with the people that we're speaking with. And my background in mental health care and in education, I have master's degrees in both, all continue to tie into that. And so the work within my book is meant to take people who don't know about this topic area and this group and population of amazing people and help them to kind of grow into that space when they don't come from the background, when they don't have personal experience that they know of, and growing from there. Faye, I'd love to hear about what's in your book.
Yeah,
Tell us about it.
I love that lead in with that link to language. Fantastic for what I'd like to talk about. So the book I wrote a few years ago now, I can't claim to sort of own that book. It's for the company I work for. So it's Twinkle Property. And it's an ebook, but it's available for educators to use with their children, either online or to print off. It very much is about language because it's called That's So Gay. And the reason I wanted to write it was from my educational background as a teacher, hearing that phrase being used over and over again to mean rubbish. And it's in the classroom and it's on the playground, and entirely innocently used, generally, that not being used to deliberately cause offence, in fact, usually used in a very jokey sense. So I wanted to take that idea and put it into a context. So That's So Gay, the book, centres around our main character, Jules, and he is in a year 5, grade 5 classroom, and the language gets used in the story. He starts to notice his best friend and also his teacher feeling, he notices a mood change, and he's sort of unsure as to what's on their minds. And it turns out that actually the use of the language has upset them. They found it insulting for different reasons. His teacher is indeed gay and has a partner, and his best friend has 2 mums. And so for this reason, these 2 individuals are finding the use of the language upsetting, and the story kind of evolves. Jules talks it through with his mum. It's building up to the summer fair at school, so that's the context where actually he and his friends get to meet his teacher, and outside of teacher land with his partner, and their teacher introduces the children to his partner. And it's about using language in the correct context and explaining that it's okay to use the word gay when we mean somebody is gay, but it's not okay to use the word gay to mean rubbish or bad or loser, and that actually it can be quite hurtful if we misuse language. So yeah, that's the premise of the book, and all the supporting resources that we have on the Twinkle website that teachers can use to get the discussions going, really open it up to get children talking about it and thinking a little bit more about the language they use and how hurtful it can be, including all those gender stereotypes.
It's amazing. Although I have to be honest, I don't think I can ever envision my teacher not living at the school like I thought they did 5, 6 years old. Their names are still Mr. and Mrs. And they live at the school. I don't know what they do on the weekend. I assume that the cafeteria people feed them. I don't know what else they do. I refuse to believe otherwise, even though I am now an actual educator and I do not live at the school. I don't know.
But don't you love it when teachers do talk more about their lives? And actually, I think some of the best educators are those who are the role models and probably make the biggest difference to young people when they are talking more openly about their experiences and their lives outside of work.
Absolutely. The safer we make it for educators to speak, the more representation, the more the children see proximity, the more that we recognize that any of us can be educators. In the States, didn't happen to have my first non-white educator, or my first that I was aware was gay, until I was in college or university, or again, the terminology on that one between the States and England. And what does that tell us about who can be in those roles? Let's tell us about your book.
Wow. Can I just say, Faye, as a UK mum who parented through lockdowns, thank you for Twinkle, because you're the reason we're all still alive. It was amazing. Honestly, the resources are incredible. So yes, my first book is called Erin and Roderick Discover Families. And again, this links into this need for language to be at the center of everything we do. It's the way we communicate. It's the way we make ourselves understood and we navigate our lives. And I very quickly realized that language is not very inclusive when we look at how we talk to children. So we assume when we send out newsletters to mums and dads, or even parents, that is assumptive and it's not very inclusive. In my children's sports lessons, the teachers would readily come in and go, "Morning, boys and girls," or "Hey, guys." And this is very difficult because, as we are aware, sitting here, there are a lot of different family units. There are also people who identify as non-binary or trans, and all of these people suddenly are excluded from that conversation. And very often you'll get the backlash of people saying, oh, for goodness sake, you know, it's just a word. But it isn't until you're not included in that word, you're not invited to the party, you're not at the table because of that word, that you suddenly realize how massive that is. So I wanted to write a book that was about a family unit that was an enjoyable story for children. So it's based at a picnic, because I wanted to pick something that everyone could relate to. So I didn't want to particularly base it at a day out somewhere expensive, because, you know, that would discriminate on financial background. Not every child has been to the zoo or wherever. So just sandwiches in the park. But we have different families there. And I'm just going to show you a picture of one of the families very quickly. So I don't know if that's probably showing okay.
It is.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so here on this page, we are at the park, at the picnic, and we have in the background, Erin. And Erin is a young girl wearing shorts and a blue shirt and blue trainers. And then we have Stephen, who is a young boy in a pink t-shirt and blue jeans, with his mum, Laura, who is a white female with ginger hair in sports shorts and a white t-shirt, and his other mummy, Sandy, who is of Indian diaspora, who is wearing a green skirt, white t-shirt with a sunflower on. And this is one of our families who obviously have same-sex parents. So Stephen has two mums, and I wanted to open up the conversation so that children have a really easy resource to say to the adults in their lives, you know, why does such and such have two mummies? Or why does so-and-so live with their granddad? Or whatever the situation is. And for that to be okay. Because the other thing that really stands out to me is that quite often adults feel terrified when they get asked these enormous questions, or questions they think are embarrassing. They want to shush and say, no, 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 we don't ask that. But actually, it's the shushing that's got us to this point. So what we need to do is take the shushing away, be able to ask the questions in a really kind, supportive, and safe space, and for children to feel empowered in understanding that there is no normal, and we need to usualize this more inclusive language. So that's sort of why I wrote the book.
And it gives that confidence, doesn't it, to the parents who do feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
What better sort of tool if you are someone who's not comfortable, or you're not sure how to have that conversation. If you have the resource like a fantastic book, you can use it to facilitate that discussion, because some people are uncomfortable or feel they don't have the right knowledge, and that's perfect.
Absolutely. And one of the great things about this particular conference is that we get not just the three of us that come together, but within other moments. And I know these are recorded, so for those who weren't able to be here or who want to watch again, there are some other people who have been present at other moments, including Sue Sanders, who has taken the word that we heard Fliss use for usualize. And instead of it being this idea of normalize, which would mean you're not currently normal, but we're going to try to make it like you're normal, which is obviously offensive, and become usualize, right? What you're saying or doing or how you feel or look or love isn't what we typically see as usual. We're realizing that it is. Sue Sanders has been a part of the conference, so there will be recording, I'm sure, of that. And also Ollie Pike, who does Pop and Ollie, who is fantastic and has a number of resources and children's books. And I think collectively between the three of us here, we really run a lot of that gamut of giving the tools that we need, because so many people clam up when they don't know what to do. And we take away the fear, we take away the uncertainty, we take away that sense of panic when somebody asks a question we can't answer by creating these resources. So I want to talk for a bit about the process, since we are the authors table here. For me, I was a speaker first and an educator first. and was heard by my first publishing house. People were coming out of a talk I had given about how parents can support their transgender youth. And they approached and said, people love what you're doing. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I am a giant nerd. And I said, actually, I put it on my life goals list when I was 4, which is not a thing I think people probably answer with that. And so they said, fantastic, give us ideas. And I gave them this one because my thought was most of my work as an educator is in going into spaces with adults, and I couldn't teach them new until I untaught them what was either old or wrong or both. And I started thinking, if we get it right for children, we don't have to unteach and then teach when they're adults. And we don't have this period where they get it wrong without knowing as they grow up until they bump into somebody like me who can teach them. Let's get it in the schools when they're young. And when I started to talk to the educators that I knew, they all said, great idea. I don't have time to become the expert to do it. And I said, oh, I'll find you the book. I'll just send it. I'll send you a link. I'm sure that it exists somewhere. And then I realized it did not. And then I realized if it didn't, and my background degrees are in mental health and in education, and I've spent, I think at that time, 25 years doing this work, and I know the book needs to exist, I accidentally backed myself straight into the corner of, I suppose it's me that needs to write it, which led to the first book. As soon as I announced it, the world started saying to me, great for educators. What about people in other fields? What about people in other businesses? What about people who want to be leaders? And I literally took that idea, and the second book is specifically for people who don't work in education, which came out of that. So it was a direct result of being asked for what people are hungry for and trying to get them what they needed with the knowledge base that I had to get it into their hands when I can't travel everywhere to be in everybody's back pocket or backyard or over their shoulder every time. Fliss, what was it like for you to write a book?
Wow. I love the idea of you being in someone's backpack, by the way, just pulling out Dr. Chris. There we are.
You can't see this, but I'm gosh, I don't know. My driver's license says I'm 5'3". I am probably lying about that. So there are certain backpacks I do fit into. I don't know that folks want to carry me around, but I do have tall friends that call me a pocket human. So it's possible I'm fun size like a candy bar, I guess.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, okay. So for me, gosh, it really started when my daughter was 5. She was really terribly bullied, to the point where we had to take her out of school, because there was no support from the school that she was in. And it was purely around the way she presented, in that, she preferred to wear shirts and trousers. She preferred playing superheroes, and she was very good at sports, and she wanted short hair, and all this was perceived as boyish. And I won't go into the sort of brutality actually at the age of 5 that she undercame, because that's her story to tell. But while she was at home, we kept her home for 6 months, and then we found a new school which is gorgeous and inclusive, and she's super happy now. She's 8, so this is 3 years ago. While she was at home in that 6 months period, we did a lot of reading together, and in all the books that we read, she kept saying to me, where am I? I don't see anyone like me. Is there something wrong with me? And, as a parent, my heart sort of crumbled even more than it had been. And I thought, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Why on earth aren't you here, actually? So she said to me, what are we going to do about this? So, of course, having one of those superhero moments, I said, well, I shall write a book about it. That is what we will do. And then I sort of said to my husband, I promised her I'm going to write a book. To which he sort of was like, oh, good. So I literally just head down and once she was safely in her new school, that was it. I was going for it. So I wrote the manuscript and I went out there and I found a publisher in the States, actually, in California, and they loved it. And so I went back and forth with the ideas that we had, and I really wanted it to be, as I say, a story that children could enjoy, but that also had this representational message, and not representation that was tokenistic, but representation that was real. Because again, like with the inclusive language, it isn't until you aren't represented that you understand, how important seeing yourself in media, whether that's in a book or on an advert, how important that is, and that the representation still isn't out there, it still isn't diverse enough, it still isn't intersectional enough. I am actually asexual and I don't see any aces in books, in stories, and I understand profoundly how difficult that is, and you do question yourself. So for children, tiny people who are just finding their feet in the world, I wanted to find a publisher that would run with this story that said, hey, your family is out there, you are out there, and you are absolutely fantastic just the way you are. Let's showcase that, let's celebrate that. So that was me sort of hitting the road running.
It's fantastic. And I love that as we're talking and with so many people from so many different countries, we're still using different words and language, even for things as simple as clothing. And what does that look like when we describe ourselves, when we describe the characters in the cartoon? And I can't promise on this one, but I will try going with trousers instead of pants. It's that language piece all the time that we are learning. And now I'm psyched to learn about Faye's book journey. How did your book come to be, Faye?
Thank you. Yes. So, my personal journey is that I'm sort of an educator in the primary sector. I myself am cisgender, heterosexual, but I have a son who is now 18 and a half, who was born biologically a little girl and had a girl's name, and at the age of 2.5, asked when he would get his willy. There's another language item for us, meaning a penis. I said, "Oh, darling, you won't. You're a little girl." He was distraught. So we had tears, absolute panic, rage, anger, very upset, and questioned from very, very early on. Questioned about gender and roles and sort of mums and dads and possibilities and the future and all these sorts of questions. And I aimed to be as open and supportive as I could be, but I won't pretend I had all the knowledge. Like we were saying earlier, I didn't have the answers myself, the resources. I didn't really know much about that at all. And just supported him as an individual as best I could. And then as I had the opportunity when I joined Twinkle to develop the LGBTQ+ content, I was able to look into areas to develop, one of which was this story for the originals team called That's So Gay. But also we have packs on site for LGBT History Month and Pride Month, and I've delivered some live lessons during the first lockdown for Pride Month. Part of the party is a book for younger readers that we have, which is very much sounds similar, Flist, in that celebration of the different families, which is so important to have that representation. We have got, as well as resources I've written, that are lesson packs called How Different Can Two Mums Be? And you think that it's two different children talking about their respective mums, but actually at the end you realise it's one child talking about their two mums. their different interests. And we have aimed absolutely as much as possible in our PSHE lesson plans to make sure we're representing and mentioning what it means to be non-binary, transgender, asexual, when it's age appropriate, but treading carefully to suit guidelines that come out from the governments and the concerns that some parents have around and different opinions we all have around what is age appropriate for different children. So we're sort of treading a fine line, but we absolutely want to make sure that representation is there, and that children feel they can openly ask a question, and whether that's about someone in their family or their friend. And I loved what you said earlier, Dr. Chris, about the having to undo things that have been learned, when actually most children, and sadly from what you've said there, Fliss, that isn't the case with your daughters. Sadly, often children from a young age can show that discriminatory behaviour and language. But also often I've seen as a teacher that children can be quite open and accommodating and understanding if we teach them honestly and openly at a young age. We can sort of prevent those prejudices and catch those stereotypes at their root before they form too much and get too big. And education is always our best tool, really, isn't it? And certainly I'm learning all the time, always learning what's the best way to do something, or the best thing to say, or the terminology that I perhaps didn't really have a full grasp of, that I'm still learning all the time. And I think if we can just keep teaching each other and sharing good practice and keeping it positive, I think that's so important. So yeah, Twinkle for me opened that door to be able to create more content, and I want to keep doing that. I want to keep making sure we're celebrating and everyone, and being inclusive of everyone and representing everyone.
It's a great thought. And I think as we talk about our work as educators and our work celebrating, we also have to look at our work as learners. And when we look at our work as learners, we also have to come back to us being authors, and this being an author roundtable. And it makes me think of the differences for me between writing the first book and the second book, and going from being a baby author who didn't know to being, maybe a toddler author. I'm not real sure. Not quite sure what the terminology on that should be. I think I'm making it up as I go. And I know that for me, one of the key learning points was learning when to speak up for myself. I knew at some point what I wanted the book to be. I knew how I wanted it to read. And in my first contract, I felt so grateful somebody wanted me to speak. I just went with what the publisher gave me as a contract. And I learned first that I had no say over my cover. And the initial one they came up with, I did not enjoy and fought very, very hard. I won that fight. I think it might have been because they were sick of hearing me talk about it. I don't care, whatever it took to win that one. And I am thrilled because I see that book cover all the time and I adore it. So it was worth that fight. I also decided to make an audiobook for my first book. And it was critical to me that I recorded that myself. I wanted it to be my written voice and also the sound of my voice and pronouncing words the way I meant for them to be. Although the English accent is much more posh than I will ever be. I can try and use words like trousers and jumper, but I'm still, the American is just everywhere. And so I've learned in my next book contract and my future ones, it says in there that I have a say in what my book cover looks like. It says I have a say in what the editing looks like, because my first book, the editor was in London and I couldn't undo some things that aren't written as an American speaker would write.
Yeah.
So it moved me into realizing some ownership pieces and some need to take that reality and recognize as much as I wanted to be wanted, as much as I wanted to publish, I wasn't willing to give up my voice. And so I'm wondering, Fliss, how about you? What have you learned as you were writing?
It's frighteningly similar, actually. With the first book that I was just showing you, the front cover, although I love it, it's not very representative of what's inside the book. And that was, again, because I was a very new author and I was incredibly grateful that anyone wanted to read what I was going to say. So when I wrote my second book, which is the Diffability Bunch, which I'll just quickly show you on screen there. So I'll quickly tell you what's on there. So we've got 6 characters. We've got a black female girl. She is in a wheelchair. We've got a young white boy with Down syndrome. Then we have a white boy with a green t-shirt, a white girl with a blue t-shirt, a black boy with a yellow t-shirt, and a Hispanic girl with a yellow t-shirt. And they're all characters who were in there, but they made the front cover, and I pushed for that because, again, you know, it's having that strength, I think, and confidence in yourself as an author to push forward on the things that are most important to you. And you get the sort of inner determination, I think it is, to think, well, if I'm creating this model for children that we need the courage to live authentically, then I have to live authentically as an author. And I can only do that if I push forward on the things that I hold truest and I hold dearest. And then if you can do that, I think that the children reading your message, children in my mind are born kind and curious in equal measure. And so, you know, they can receive this message, and in their kindness and curiousness, they can then become the next generation where these conversations are usualized. So yeah, I would definitely say in my second book, I pushed harder for a more inclusive and representative outlook on the front cover.
I love it so much. Faye, how about you? What was your experience?
Yeah, well, a little bit different, I guess. Working for a company, when you write, that content doesn't belong. As soon as I write anything, that content isn't mine. It belongs to Twinkle, and we're a team, and I love that because I had some great feedback from some editors who could really help, because I'd never written a book before. And certainly if I'd written short sort of narrative poems or content to use in the class, it wasn't something like a sort of a short novel for older children. I hadn't written anything like that before. So the collaborative approach really helped me. But I didn't get any say actually in the illustrations or the cover. And there were some little wording issues that we went back and forth, and things I didn't want the playground to be called the yard, but it ended up being the yard, I think. But actually moving forward, the other content I've developed since, I think I have become more confident in saying this is that. So for that PowerPoint lesson, or the whole lesson pack I wrote about how different can two mums be, I had lots of instructions on there for illustrators and designers to say exactly how I wanted the slides to look and the illustrations to look, because I did have that clear idea in mind, and I felt confident about what I wanted that resource to look like and how it would be used in the classroom. So we do grow in confidence and maturity as writers, and yeah, I think we have to really listen to our inner voice that does know what needs to be out there. We know what we're trying to do here and what a difference we're trying to make, and we won't have all the knowledge about how publishing works, and we can always respect other people's opinions and suggestions and ideas and advice, but I think if you know that core belief in what you're doing and why you're doing it is the driving force, and you've got to keep hold of that, because that's so important, because the message itself that you're trying to get across and how you want to make a positive difference, that's got to shine through.
Well, when we think about the message that we're shining through, I think as we get ready to wrap up in our author roundtable here, we also have to realize and think about the people who are tuning in either live or on recording who might have a book idea, maybe in their head, maybe in their heart, and what our one piece of advice and guidance for them is. And I think we start with Faye on this one.
I guess that clear message. What message do you want your readers to leave with, and how will they take that message forward? How can you get them to carry that message with them in their everyday life?
That is absolutely beautiful, as is Fliss. Fliss, what are your thoughts? What's your advice for somebody who's thinking about writing a book?
Thank you. Okay, so I actually came up with a little mantra in my author's journey, because it sometimes gets really difficult to wade through everything. And my little mantra for myself, but maybe it'll work for someone else, is whatever the question, let love guide the answer. And I think if you can apply that to yourself and to anybody who's asking questions of you, if you can answer it with love at the heart of the answer, it will see you through and you will get to where you want to go.
Oh, I love that so much. It is such a beautiful sentiment. And I think for me, oh, we've got echo of somebody. I think for me, it really comes down to two thoughts. The first is that you are the only you, and also you are not alone. And not only is that, I hope, comforting just as a person who lives on the shared planet, but also it means that you are the only person who can write the thing that's in your heart, who has the perspective that you have. And it also means that because you're not alone, whatever it is you're working through, sorting out, learned and want to share, wish you would have known sooner, other people feel that way also. So when you're not sure if you should write something because it's probably already been written, it hasn't been written the way that you write it. If you're not sure if anybody cares but you, if you care, if it would have helped you to have had that book sooner in your life, to have walked you through something, it means there's somebody, and many, many somebodies out there who could use it. So never let yourself get in your own way. And I say that because I am about to potentially get in my own way as we close out by saying to Faye and Fliss, I want to co-author with each of you. I want to write something, the three of us. I want us to come back here with the Queen of Pride in Education, so that we will be talking about the next publication and how she has brought us together in that panel last year. And now here we are presenting something where her name will have to go in our acknowledgements for bringing us together. And as we all come together for the upcoming rest of this conference, we bow down to the Queen right here coming back to us. Tell us what's coming up next.
Oh, Chris, honestly, you're very good at flattery and it works. You've done a phenomenal job chairing. I'm really, really grateful. From the States, stepping in. You've been such a strong supporter of the conference. I'm really grateful. And the publications that you have also help. And I want to thank you, Faye. I think you're a fantastic mum. And I've had the pleasure of meeting you face to face very recently.
That was a lovely surprise. We both were at a careers fair and I got to introduce you to my son briefly.
Yes,
was great.
Brilliant. And hopefully one day we'll be able to do this face to face. One can really hope. And Fliss, first of all, I think it's very brave that you come out as ace publicly. It's going to be recorded and it's going to go all the way around the world, and I commend you, because I know there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding around the more marginalized voices that are part of our community. And I'm really pleased that in this conference, we had the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. We've had almost the entire alphabet. So I'm really pleased. And it was quite an intersectional. So thank you so very much.